sometimes what happens is students write one page on historical particularism and one page on transpose. That's not what is asked over here. Anthropology more scientific, remove the biases, remove the ethnocentrism. Radcliffe Brown uses status, role, and institution in order to explain structural functionalism. Even today, ethics, moral values, ethical principles, code of conduct are important in order to regulate human behavior. And from that angle, you are going to substantiate that how Purushartha is relevant today. So, so that's how you are supposed to write. You're not writing one page on karma, one page on rebirth. I hope you all understood. That's not the right way to write. Hello everyone, welcome to Mentors for IAS. I'm Dr. Arjun Bopanna and you're watching anthropology related videos for UPSC Mains. So this video, I'm going to address one very important doubt or issue that students who write anthropology mains face. That is, what to write for a 10-marker question. Okay, so the 10-marker question do not have any keywords or indicative or directive word to help you or to let you know what you are supposed to write. Most of the 10 markers, almost all 10 markers that is asked are open-ended questions. So you might have realized that, open-ended questions. So many of my students, when I'm correcting their papers, face challenge as to what all they are supposed to write. Since it's an open-ended question, every time there is one or other aspect that is required to be written goes missing. And therefore, in spite of them having knowledge, having the content, they'll not be able to get the marks because they wouldn't have written what is required. So therefore, this video will try and address that issue with respect to 10 markers. Now, there are different types of 10-marker questions that can be asked. One that I have put over here, which was asked previously. So historical particularism. And similar to that, historical particularism and transpose. So here, the main focus of your answer is obviously going to be historical particularism. But what all you are supposed to write in this particular topic, that is something which you need to keep in mind. So if you see this question over here, historical particularism, it's an open-ended question. So what all are you going to write over here? So in 10 markers, the more dimensions you're going to write, and within that dimension, the more points you are going to write, you're going to get marks, especially over here. So historical particular, you write everything that you know about historical particularism and focus on all dimensions, not just on one aspect of it. So you can write the context of historical particularism. Then in that context, you will be writing who gave it, etc. How did it develop? It was developed by Franz Boas to counter the comparative studies, etc. And so in that way, you are going to write the context. Okay, so then the basic elements, okay, of historical particulars. That means how does it aim to do that? It's a culture historical studies. You do a geographical study, go back in history, blah, blah, blah. So all that you are going to write. So the basic elements and components. Then you are going to write its achievements. So how it helped in making anthropology much more scientific, much more neutral, value loaded, etc. So all that positive and achievements you are going to write. And also you can write about its criticism, historical particularism and the criticism of it. And finally, in your conclusion, you can write its legacy. That means how it helped in developing other theories like diffusion or culture personality school, civilization schools, etc. Or also on how it gave impetus towards fieldwork and ethnographic studies. So this is how you are going to write this particular answer. In the second one, over here, if you see historical particularism and Franz Boas. So sometimes what happens is students write one page on historical particularism and one page on Franz Boas. That's not what is asked over here. I'll repeat again, students write one page on historical particularism because there's 2 pages and the other page on Franz Boas. That's not what you are expected to write. So here what you are supposed to write is basically how Franz Boas influenced in the development of historical particularism. What idea did Franz Boas give to anthropologists in order to undertake historical particularism? what was in his mind while giving historical particularism as a theory, because ultimately his objective was to make anthropology more scientific, remove the biases, remove the ethnocentrism. Therefore, his objective to develop this concept of historical particularism was to make, was to bring about cultural relativistic ideas or cultural relativism. So like that, all those things has to be written with the focus on Franz Boas. So you are going to write about historical particularism, but within the framework of Franz Boas. And if you do that, you're going to get better marks. Okay, so that's how you're going to write. So when historical particularism, everything about historical particularism. Whereas when historical particularism and Franz Boas, like that, you would have seen many topics which are related to each other. So you don't write two separate, on that. You write how they are related to each other. How they are related to each other. Something like that. You don't write it separately. Similarly, let's say over here, direct question, Radcliffe Brown's idea of status, role, and institution. Okay, so here, this is what basically this is talking about. But the words are missing. You can just put, instead of Radcliffe Brown, you write Franz Boas. Franz Boas's idea on historical particularism. That is what is expected over here. You reframe it in your mind to make more clarity of what you're supposed to write. Then, similarly over here, you're going to write how Radcliffe Brown's structural functionalism, right? Then you are going to write within that, he explains how society is made up of parts. Each part has status and roles, and when they come together to form an institution, they fulfill certain functions based on the status and role, blah, blah, blah. Give examples of Australia, of Andaman Islanders, as to how he explains all of this. So those things has to be written over here. Don't focus simply on writing about Radcliffe Brown, or don't write about status role from other point of view. Focus on how Radcliffe Brown uses status, role, and institution in order to explain structural functionalism. Right. Similarly, you can have an open-ended question. Now you understood functionalism. So what is functionalism? Basic context of functionalism. How did it develop? Mention, Herbert, Malinowski, Emil Durkheim, from whom they got this idea. Okay, functionalism, two types in anthropology: cultural functionalism, Malinowski, structural functional, all that you will write. The basic tenets. So you will write one heading on Malinowski, one heading on Radcliffe Brown. You will write about its achievement, very briefly, everything. So cultural functionalism needs theory, and how cultural institutions are there to fulfill the needs. Okay, and achievements and criticism. So criticism like does not explain social change, right? It is cyclical, that is structure to function, function to. So you know it. You write about the criticism of functionalism, right? So this is something like that. Similarly, let's go to another example here: Purushartha and righteous living. It's not a separate topic. You don't write one page on Purushartha, and you don't write about righteous living. Or rather, you don't simply focus everything and you don't write everything about Purushartha. That also is not the demand of this question. Correct? Oh, Purushartha was done in the class. Everything about Purushartha, whatever you know. No, that's not what is asked. So here, briefly, just few lines on introduction of what is Purushartha. Now, why Purushartha as an value system, as a social system in Indian social way of life was introduced or was there in order to ensure that there is order in the society. It provides code of conduct for individuals of the members of the society and all of that. You write that in your introduction. Okay, so if you see, this is your page, 2 pages. So up to half to 3/4 of the page, up to 3/4 of the page, you can write about Purushartha from a traditional point of view. And then you can write how, in traditional point of view, its ultimate objective is to ensure that individual lead a righteous life by fulfilling dharma, by, artha as well as kama, but in a righteous manner. Aparigraha, astheya, these words has to be there while talking about, the concept. And then it talks about fulfilling rinas and obligations in order to ultimately attain moksha. By doing that, an individual is going to be a good person, that is nothing but living a righteous life. That in a traditional sense. And then you write how this is important even today. Even today, ethics, moral values, ethical principles, code of conduct are important in order to regulate human behavior. And from that angle, you are going to substantiate that how Purushartha is relevant today. So your next one page is going to be how Purushartha is still relevant today in different contexts in our social relationship, in order to ensure order in the society, in order to ensure progress and development of individual as well as the society, in order to ensure social cohesion, in order to ensure that every individual of the society abide by some common principles, etc., motivates individuals to help others, blah, blah, blah. You are going to write and thus conclude saying that Purushartha, okay, and the ashrama system, even though is not practiced in by majority of individuals, but the essence of it is ingrained in our social fabric, in our social system, which helps Indian society to organize and create a sense of unity in India in a cultural terms, right? So that's how you are going to write that. Maybe you can also add limitations to Purushartha, because with respect to westernization, modernization, the idea of Purushartha has come down. Purushartha, because of modernization and constitution law, there is no way to enforce Purushartha, and therefore it has reduced in terms of its efficiency. So we have other alternative systems like law and order, constitution, things like that to ensure that people abide by the code of conduct. So something like that needs to be written. Similarly, if you see other questions that were asked, here also, if you see all the discussion, we are talking about, you have to write the relationship, how they influence each other. Okay, so similarly here, karma and rebirth, how they influence each other, how they are related to each other, how your karma, what is karma and how karma influences your cycle of birth and rebirth. Okay, birth and moksha. Okay, so that's how you are supposed to write. You're not writing one page on karma, one page on rebirth. I hope you all understood. That's not the right way to write. It's not right you write one page on karma, on one page on rebirth. No, you're supposed to relate karma and rebirth. How karma is going to, determine whether you are going to attain moksha or whether you are going to be reborn, and how you are going to be reborn. Okay, so the varna system based on karma, etc., all that can be brought into it. Similarly, here also varnashrama and the concept of rina. So how rina is ingrained in the concept of varna and ashrama system. So all these questions, if you see, you're not writing it separately. You're writing after a brief introduction how they relate to each other, how they influence each other. So this is how you are going to ask. If a one-word question is asked, write all dimensions. If two-word questions is asked, you see whether you have to write how they are related to each other. Sometimes when two words questions is asked like this, you might not have to write the relationship, but you have to bring out or compare them. That is, bring out the difference. In this case, jati and varna, you don't have to write the relationship. Here you have to write the difference. What is difference and how, what is jati and varna and how are they different from each other? Write a table and give a comparison between the two. You start with the definitions, you start with the similarities, and then write the difference between the two. Similarly here, ethnocentric and cultural relativism. You don't write the relationship as how one influences the other. You write the difference between ethnocentric and cultural relativism. This is how you are supposed to write a 10-marker question. Please pay attention to what is the demand and then write your answer. That makes a difference. 2 to 3 mark variation happens because the way you write your answer. Not alone with the content. Content is important, but after that, how you write your content, how you use your content, that becomes very important. So make sure that these things are kept in mind the next time you write your answers. So if anybody wants help with respect to anthropology, mentorship and answer writing practices, etc., feel free to contact us. The description is there below. The test series programs, the timetable, everything is below. Make sure that you subscribe to it so that you can improve your scores. Clearing prelims is very challenging these days. Now that you have cleared your prelims, make sure you get the best guidance for your mains. I hope this video will be useful. If you did like the video, thank you for watching and have a good day.